Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the channel. Much appreciated you guys tuning in this morning. And today we're going to talk about a subject that I've been getting a lot of comments as far as requests to talk about, and I've been thinking about talking about it myself. And that's how to deal with on the water confrontations, which if you fish long enough, they're inevitable to happen. And as you can imagine, I've been fishing tournaments for 40 years, so you can only imagine how many confrontations or knuckleheads I run into on the water, and I'm going to sort of give you my opinion on that about the best way to deal with that. And before we get started, a couple different things here. If you guys noticed yesterday, the two videos I put up yesterday, on the thumbnail there were some graphics, which you're probably thinking, man, Randy's getting fancy. He's got graphics on his thumbnail. Anyway, my stepson Owen put those on there. So let me know if you like them or not. If you guys want graphics on the thumbnails, let me know if you like that. If you don't, we'll leave them off. So it's really up to you guys on there. And also yesterday we hit 30,000 subscribers. Much appreciated, everybody. Like I said, I'm just so grateful that, the channel is going well. I had no idea it was going to get to 30,000 so quick. So things are slowed down a little bit. I guess a lot of people are fishing instead of watching videos out there, but again, thank you very much. And one final thing is Johnny and I have our next virtual our next virtual seminar on fishthemoment.com, April 15th. We got a post-spawn seminar. Johnny's going to be talking about all the post-spawn stuff offshore, and I'm going to be taking all the shallow water post-spawn stuff. It's probably going to be our most information-packed seminar we've done. So you can sign up for that on fishthemoment.com. Okay, let's have a little conversation on this on the water confrontations you can possibly get into. I really classify it as far as three different deals that happen out there. You've got your confrontations with other tournament anglers out there. Then you got your confrontation with other tournament anglers. You got your confrontation with your local anglers, and you got a confrontation with property owners, specifically dock owners. Each one of them has their unique set of circumstances. So we'll start out. Let's do property owners. We are just fun fishermen, and then tournament fishermen first. Okay, property owners. These are the ones that can really be crabby. Most of the time, and like I said, I'm going to sort of give you an overview of what I've experienced. Most of the property owners out there that you have confrontations with, they're normally older dudes. They're normally, guys that are 50 to 70 for some reason. Those are the sort of the get off my lawn type guys, that type of thing. And first of all, I'll say one thing about property owners. In my opinion, I don't think there should be any docks on the lakes in the United States. The waters we have in this country are public waters, and for somebody to put a boat dock on there and then for them to claim part of that water around that dock, I don't care if it's a marina or if it's a dock or whatever, that's just not right, man. And there's so many local politics that are involved in this, as far as these people getting to have rights around their dock, or they think they have rights. Marina docks, for somehow they get leases or something, excuse me, on the water to keep you 50, 100 feet away from the docks. I don't understand how they lease public water that we pay taxes on, but that's another issue we could talk about. But the marina owner, there's two different ones. You've got the private dock owners and the marina owners. And I'm real familiar with this because, I live in Missouri, where we got, Lake of the Ozarks, it's nothing but docks. Grand Lake's nothing but docks, and all over the country. Most of the time what happens is these dudes just don't want you fishing around their dock. I've had guys come up to me and just watch me like a hawk. And if my jig got 3 inches away from their pontoon boat, they'd say something about it, but you better not hit that pontoon boat. There was this one dude down at Grand Lake that was famous for it years ago. He had a dock there, and it's one of those docks, when you pulled up to it, he had 20 fishing rods put in like catfish holders all over the dock. So he had these 20 rods going out all over the docks, and he cast out, so he'd had lines going out away from the dock everywhere. So there's no way you could fish around his dock without catching his lines. And what would happen is when you started coming into his dock, he would run down the walkway, and he had these blowers. They have these blowers on docks. Usually they have one blower to keep it from freezing. This dude had installed like 4 blowers on his dock, and he'd turn these things on even if it was the middle of the summer, if somebody came around his dock and it was just like a whirlpool around there. So that was one extreme. And like I said, I've had guys, they come down to their house, or they're drinking their coffee, and they'll come down and they'll just start telling you, you can't fish around this dock. This dock's private property. You need to get out of here. I've had every single situation you can imagine around dock owners, marina docks, whatever. Guys saying, I'm going to call the sheriff, I'm going to call the police, that type of stuff. The way that you have to handle this, and the way that you have to handle a lot of this, is basically you have to kill them with kindness for a little bit, the property owners. You have to say, sir, this is public water. You cannot keep me from fishing here. If he keeps pushing it, you can say, well, we can call the sheriff and we can get him down here right now. We can settle this situation. You have to say that. You have to handle it in that terms, because normally what happens is these dudes, they'll call the tournament director and they'll make up a story or whatever on there about you getting on their docks or that type of stuff. So it doesn't really do any good to mouth these guys, even though I know that's the first tendency a lot of us want to do is to mouth them, because these dudes are looking for an argument. I mean, they're crabby, they're old most of the time, and they like to argue, and they always have this fallback that I'm going to call the police, or some of them will start throwing rocks around your boat. It can really escalate quick if you allow it, but you have to de-escalate it by initially trying to kill them with kindness, and then if not, calling the police with that. Okay, the second group we'll talk about is the recreational anglers. Other fishermen on the lake that they're not in the tournament. And these, and got some hot chocolate here, it wasn't hot. These guys right here are probably the ones that I've had the most problem with. Out of the 3, out of the dock owners, weekend dudes, and tournament guys, the issues I've had for the most part are the guys that are just fishing for fun. The problems that I've run into with these guys are, most of these guys, they don't like tournament fishermen for the most part. That's the element that you're running into. And a lot of these guys, you see them on heavily fished tournament lakes. Like, the issues I've had with these guys have been on big famous lakes like Lake Gunnersville, Lake Chickamauga, the popular lakes that have a lot of fishing on it. And for the most part, what these guys do is, like I said, they may or may not, some of them may fish club tournaments, but most of them don't fish at all. But they're out, a lot of these guys that you run into, these weekend guys, they're out there to sort of make a point that they're going to go out and they're going to see if they can catch more fish than their pro during the competition, or they're going to try to interject themselves in a way that affects you negatively in the tournament. I'll give you 2 different scenarios with that. I was fishing, it was a Bassmaster Top 150 tournament, Gunnersville, and I was leading the tournament going into after the second day of the tournament, and the ESPN camera crews were on me and everything, and I had this one grass line that I'd been catching a lot of fish on, flipping a lizard into it, and it wasn't that long. It was only like 100 yards long. Hadn't seen another boat there the whole time, and I got there that last morning of the tournament, and like I said, I'm leading the tournament. The camera boat's 30 feet away from me, filming me, and this dude, and I'm working down the grass line, and this dude runs up and he pulls up about 100 feet in front of me and starts fishing to me. And the camera guys are looking at me and he goes, man, what is this idiot doing? So anyway, he just starts, he's fishing right to me, and I'm like, this is the last thing you want in a tournament when you're trying to win a tournament, is you got some knucklehead, right on top of you that knows what's going on. I mean, I've got a rat boat. He knows I'm sure he knows I'm in the tournament. The camera boat's filming. There's a big Betacam camera filming me, and this guy's working right to me. So anyway, he gets up about 50 feet in front of me, and one of the camera guys says, "Dude," he said, "this guy's leading the tournament, man. Give him a break." You know, he goes, "What are you doing?" He said, and I hadn't said anything at this point, and you know, eventually he gets right up there and he goes, "I don't care if you're leading the tournament or not." He goes, "I fish this lake every day of the week, and I'm going to fish where I want to." So in a situation like that, with a tournament, with a camera boat on me, you know, I can't, you know, I can't do anything. You know, I can't say anything because I don't want to come across on national television, you know, like I'm some hothead. As much as I wanted to, you know, basically say, you know, this guy, what are you doing there? Did you just get out of bed?
Yeah.
You did? You want to go get a snack real quick and we'll come back?
Yeah.
Okay, you want to say hi to everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, well, okay, I'm going to run in and get him a snack real quick. I had to get Elijah snacked real quick. So anyway, this dude, you know, that's coming towards me, you know, he was out there to make a point. He was out there to make a point that I'm not going to let any, I don't care who it is, I'm not going to let any pro come in here and tell me where I can or can't fish on my home lake. And here's the problem that you're dealing with. Here's the mentality of those people like that aren't fishing tournaments. They don't have any empathy. They don't have the ability to put themselves in your position. Because what I wanted to say to him is, dude, if you were fishing this tournament and you had a chance to win $150,000 today on the spot that could help feed your family, would you want me in here trying to catch some of the fish to take you away from winning that tournament? Of course not, they wouldn't. But the problem with those guys like that, especially those weekend dudes, is they don't put themselves in that position. It's really all about themselves, and it doesn't matter how polite or kind you are. Excuse me. They're just out to make a statement with that, and you just can't really deal with them. So, you know, you can try, you know, to be a little, you know, persuasion, you know, again, try to be kind with it. But most of the time, you know, it's not going to work with those guys. They just really don't care. The other element that I've seen on some situations like that is when you have, say you have a big tournament out there and you got, you know, maybe some club or some weekend guys. I had another tournament I'll tell you about was I was on the Potomac River. It was another top 150 tournament, and I was in third place going into the last day of the tournament. I was only like a pound out of the lead, and it was really a weird deal. Every one of the fish that I'd caught in the tournament, there was a row of pilings. It was only like, I'm going to say this, it was no more than 75 feet long. It was just like some old pilings, and on low tide, they were about that far out of the water, and most of the time they were just under the water. You couldn't see them, and they were loaded, man. It was this 75, maybe even 50 yards. It wasn't very long at all. I could just about cast the whole length of them in one cast, and I was methodically going back and forth all day long, and the fish would bite during different tide windows. I mean, I'd catch one or two on a pass, and I might go and not catch one on a pass, and I might catch 2 or 3 on a pass. And I was catching like 30 keepers a day on this. And I was pretty confident I was going to win. I was only a pound out. So the last day of the tournament was on a Saturday. And there was a little ramp that was like a quarter mile away from this area. And that I had actually launched my boat and practice in there. I ran in there the last day of the tournament. I noticed there was quite a few boats in that parking lot. And when I got in there were 3 boats sitting on this row of pilings here. And what had happened, there was a local club tournament launched out of there, and 3 of the club dudes had went right to that row of pilings when I got there. And I didn't have anywhere else, you know, where I had any decent fish at. And I get there, and these guys are sitting there, and it's like, oh man, my heart just sunk. And I just rolled in. I said, guys, I can't tell you where to fish. I said, I'm in third place in the tournament. I'm a pound out of the lead. I got a chance to win this thing. Every bass that I've caught in this tournament have come right here. And I said, you know, is there any way I can just have it? You know, can you guys let me have it, type of a thing? And I said, I'll come up, I'll give you guys the baits I'm catching them. I'll tell you everything I did after the tournament. Not a one of them even looked up to look at me. They didn't say a word. They just kept fishing. They didn't even look at me. And I said a few choice words and just left, you know, because it was just pointless to say anything else. So the point is, when you're talking about how to deal with these weekend anglers like that, it's tempting. A lot of these guys, again, they're sort of like dock owners. A lot of them are sort of looking for an argument. Some of them are. But as tempting as it is, I've gotten in some arguments with them before. I've gotten in, some pretty heated arguments with about it. And, back when I was in my 20s, when I was fighting competitively in martial arts, and I was a little bit of a hothead more than I am now. And a couple times I just wanted to invite these dudes up on the bank and let's go settle it on the bank man to man, because a lot of them you can't even reason with. They just get more and more heated. But I'll tell you guys right now, is when you're dealing with these people, I don't care if they're dock owners or recreational fishermen or pros, you cannot escalate an argument to the point of where it gets to that point. Because outside of competitive fighting, I have never seen a physical confrontation that ended good, ever. You never know when you're going to run into some dude that's got a gun. You're never going to know if something happens that's going to hold one of you criminally liable. There's nothing good that can come out of it. So never, ever let yourself escalate a argument on the water to the point where it could potentially turn physical. You need to leave that situation. I don't care who you are. I can tell you right now, you may think you're the toughest, baddest dude out there, but there's always somebody that's tougher. There's always somebody that's badder. There's always somebody that's crazier, and you can never underestimate your opponent. I can tell you that from fighting competitively, not professionally. But so from that standpoint, never allow yourself to escalate an argument on the water to where it gets physical. It can never. You might leave that tournament and wind up finding yourself in jail for 15 years. So in a situation like that, when you're dealing with the weekend dudes and the dock fishermen, most of the time you have to approach it initially. Just try to be kind to them, be respectful, be courteous, try to put yourself in their position. And if that doesn't work, which most of the time it works, maybe half the time, some guys out there, they're just oblivious. They don't know any better. I've had guys where I've said something and they say, "Oh yeah, man, sorry about that. I'll get out of here. Have a good day." You'll run into guys like that, but then you get the other half out there that these guys are out there to make a point. They're out there to tell their buddies, "Yeah, I beat Kevin Van Dam today. I was out there and I saw him on the water, and I caught 15 pounds and he caught 12 pounds. There's guys out there that want to make that point, and that's what they're out there for. But the best thing, like I said, is just try to be nice, courteous, respectful for them. And then, if it makes you feel good, to call them, a couple names and leave, that's okay, and just get out there. Okay, the last one we'll talk about is other tournament competitors. And first of all, most of the problems, as you can imagine, I've had with 40 years of tournaments, I've had my share of, I've never had what I consider a confrontation, like a bad confrontation with another pro. I've had disagreements and I've had words and I've had arguments with some guys, but for the most part, I've never really had any serious issue like a lot of guys have. And a lot of this has to do with how long that you fish, because if you're a veteran and you're experienced in the sport, you sort of know what's right and you sort of know what's wrong a little bit. So a lot of the issues that I've had, have come from guys that maybe have not tournament fished as long, or maybe they just have something within their personality that is just a little bit confrontational, or they may not have the ethics that other pros have. But a lot of times, or in fact, most of the times, the issues that you're going to have, there's two different ones. You're going to have issues with, getting on the same area, and you're going to have issues with boat driving. The arguments that I've had with guys, the confrontations, have, for the most part, mine has been in some boat driving situations. If I see some dude that is dangerous driving a boat, if they've done something that put other anglers or myself in jeopardy, I confront them after the tournament. I'll go up to them and I'll point blank confront them on their boat driving skills and what they did. So I've had a few confrontations with that. But the other ones, a lot of the times you send around the certain stretch of a bank, or, if you get offshore, an offshore ledge or something like that, guys have confrontations about, did you see me here yesterday and come in there? What are you doing here right now? I'm winning the tournament here. What are you doing here? All this type of stuff. This is the way confrontations take place. So the first thing that you have to do when you're on the water confrontation in a tournament, if you have an issue that is gray a little bit, let's take the boat driving idiots out of the way. If you see some guy cutting in between, the point and you're 50 yards off the bank, it's obvious what he did. But if you roll into an area and you see a guy sitting on your spot, you can't immediately jump to conclusions, because what could possibly happen there is you could have been there at the wrong time. Let me give you an example. When I started off, the first couple of years when I started off on the circuit, I was this was back in the 1980s. It was the first time we fished Potomac River, and I had this one stretch of bank where I was catching them on a frog right off the bat in the morning during a low tide. And it's like I could catch them there for like an hour or so, and then they just quit biting. So the first day of the tournament, I went in there and I can't off the spot, nobody in there. I caught like maybe 12 or 13 pounds on a frog like the first hour. And then I left it because the tide was changing out and I couldn't catch anymore. And I didn't see anyone in there. The second day of the tournament, I go over there and I start fishing right off the bat. And then Paul Elias pulls up to me, who's leading the tournament. And he starts, really getting mad at me for being there. And it's like, he's leading the tournament. And he goes, Randy, what are you doing over here? And I didn't know Paul very well. I just knew how famous he was. And, he really was getting mad that I was at the spot. And I said, Paul, I caught my limit here yesterday morning, the first hour. I didn't see anyone here. I didn't know you were fishing here. And he was really mad about it. And I didn't know any better. I fished a little bit more and I left, and he stayed there. And what had happened in that situation there was, we were simply there at different times. I had no idea that he had caught his fish there later. I'd caught mine there in the morning, and he came up later and apologized to me for that. That is how a lot of the confrontations take place on the water. It's simply a misunderstanding of when you were there, timing, that type of a thing. So when you get into a situation like that, you need to get it clear, what the deal was, what the situation was. I'll tell you one other situation here. This is like one of the most profound ones. It was the 1998 Bassmasters Classic at High Rock Lake. In pre-practice there, I went down there and I spent all my time dragging logs off the bank into the lake, up the river. I was way up the river, and I put them on my boat. I put a rope on them, drug them off, put them in the water in about 2 to 3 feet of water. And I did this for like 50 or 60 isolated laydowns. So I'll jump and make the story real short. First day of the tournament, I was like one of the last boats out in the tournament that day, and George Cochran was boat number 1. So I run up to the spot, and I was going to run all my logs and everything, and I'm running through there, and I'm fishing, and it's like I'm not catching anything. It's like, what the heck? I just can't believe there's not fish on these things, because I was shaking fish off and practice on them like crazy. And I scraped around, I wound up, and I only caught 4 fish that day. And I get back, I caught 4 fish that day. And I noticed right at the end of the day, I saw George Cochran up there fishing this stretch where I put some of the logs in there. So, and he was leading the tournament after the first day. And I was like, I don't know, I think I was like in 20th or something like that after the first day. And so they had the press conference, and George is up there leading the tournament. And he comes off the stage from the press conference, and I went right over to him and I said, George, I just want to tell you right now, I go, the stretch that you were fishing up there, I said, I put most of that cover that's on that bank in there. And I say, I saw you up there. I said, I want you to know I fished up there all day long. And I said, I'll be back there tomorrow. And I said, I don't want you to think I'm hole jumping you, because I fished up there all day, and I know you're up there, and I'm not fishing up there because you were up there. And I could tell he was a little bit irritated. He didn't say a whole lot about it. And I went up there the next day, we flip-flopped it. I was boat number 1, and I went up there and caught the biggest stringer of the second day of the tournament, finished 3rd in the tournament. George finished 2nd in the tournament. But in a situation like that, we made it clear to ourselves. I made it clear what the situation was. I wasn't trying to hole jump him or anything like that. And this is the thing that you've got to do, guys. When you're in a potential confrontation, you got to set parameters and be completely transparent. But okay, that's one deal. The other issue you have out there are guys that legitimately were not fishing where you were, and they saw you fishing and they pulled up there. And this is a different scenario here, because some situations like this, you just know that these guys did not, they had no clue that they had not been fishing here, and they just saw you and fishing there. In a situation like that, that is when sometimes it becomes more heated. And I've had situations like that where guys, have come in there and saw me in there. I was at one tournament where I was leading the tournament going the last day. This was an FLW tournament, leading the tournament going the last day. And I was fishing this one ditch nobody had been in. And anyway, I was fishing this one ditch where nobody had been in. And what had happened is, and I found this out later after the tournament, is this guy that I had the confrontation in on the last day of the tournament that was sitting right there when I got there, somebody had told him that Randy Block had pulled in there and caught a big sack of fish right at the end of the day. This guy had never fished there before. I know that for a fact because I was sitting there all day long. So I get there that last morning of the tournament, and this dude's anchored on my spot where I'm leading the tournament. And I was just bent out of shape. And I went over to him. I said, dude, what are you doing here? I said, this is where I'm catching the fish. I said, you have not been here. I said, you need to get out of here right now. And he starts mouthing me saying that, he said, you can't even fish here, Randy, because I've got an anchor down and you shouldn't even be here. And I just started cussing this dude up and down. I just was telling him, I said, you're so stupid. You don't even know where the place is at. You're sitting right up on top where the fish are at. And, we just got into this huge, massive argument about this. And to make a long story short, he winds up winning the tournament off of my spot. I finished 2nd in it. And it was just a bad deal. But what happened in that situation there, the mistake that I made, because as soon as I got in this argument with this guy, that's all I could think about the rest of the day. I should have called the tournament director right then, and we should have settled it at that point right there. So in a situation like that, the first thing you can do is when you have a legitimate violation that's occurring like that, you've got to try to talk your way out of it first of all. And if that doesn't work, you can escalate it just a little bit. If that doesn't work, just call the tournament director and let them figure it out with that. So every situation is different, guys. It really is. But the problems you want to get in, that you don't want to get in with an argument, is every time that you get into an argument on the water, it takes your mind away from fishing. And that's the worst thing you can do, because all of the confrontations that I've had on the water, normally they wind up where I don't do any good in the tournament because I'm so angry and frustrated about what happened. That's all I can think about, and I'm not focusing on catching these fish. So don't let that happen to you guys. Don't let it happen. The first thing you have to do is figure out how to neutralize it, where it either works out where you both can fish or something good comes out of it. And a lot of times, one of the things that I found out, especially like for the weekend dudes, sometimes you got to treat these people like kids, because you know that they're numbskulls, what they're doing. They're idiots. You want it, like I said, it's so tempting. You want to invite these dudes up on the bank and settle it there. But you got to treat them like little kids, because it's like sometimes their minds don't function like men. It's like it's a juvenile way of thinking. So if you treat them sort of like a kid a little bit and try to convince them, in a positive, maybe non-confrontational manner, sometimes that'll work out. And I've seen that happen too as well. But it's one of the most, frustrating aspects of fishing, competitive fishing for sure. Not so much it's not that big of a deal in fun fishing, because I don't really care. some dude pulls in front of me when I'm fun fishing, so what? I just go on to the next spot. I don't let it bother me, but in competition, it can be, a little bit more intense. So my advice to everybody right off the bat is just keep a cool head, keep a calm mind, try to de-escalate the situation, try to kill them with kindness, whatever you do. And again, I'm just telling you guys how it is. Realize that some of these people you got to babysit. Some of these people, they just do not have, their mind doesn't function like that. They don't have the ethics to do the right thing. They don't have the empathy to put themselves in your position from a competitive angler. So from that standpoint, you have to come down to their level a little bit. So you sort of have to be a psychologist on the water to some point. So anyway, I could go on and on about stories. I've got stories, running out, my ears as far as stuff that's happened on the water or what I've heard has happened on the water, that type of stuff. It's part of fishing. You're going to run into it, eventually, but just try to deal with it in the most in the most kind, non-confrontational manner that you can. Not only that's the right thing to do, but it will allow you to continue to fish well throughout the course of the day. And worst thing you want to happen is you don't want to get spun out by some argument on the water. Most of the time, people that get into these confrontations that become near physical, they just sort of lack the skills of diplomacy or negotiation, and they turn to that quicker a little bit. They turn, to violence a little bit quicker. But you never want that to happen, because like I said, it never turns out good for anybody. That's the type of stuff that you read about in the newspaper. It wouldn't surprise me to hear in the newspaper some dude shot in a bass fishing tournament during an argument. You never know, man. You never know when there's some crazy dude out there that's packing, that just has had a bad day, and their wife left them and they just want to settle a score. So from that standpoint, just be careful, be cautious, be courteous, and try to just try to do the right thing at all times, and then we'll be ahead of the game. So anyway, that's today's tip, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll be back soon with another one.